Iron Soldier stands tall as one of the best games ever made for the Atari Jaguar, and was part of the must-have trinity of the console showcase games, which also included Alien vs. Predator and Tempest 2000. In 1994, the Jaguar was fighting an uphill battle. The 32-bit console wars were about to begin, so Atari needed a powerhouse title that could prove its 64-bit power. Enter Iron Soldier, a fully 3D, open-environment mech combat experience that pushed the Jaguar to the absolute limits of its technology. For those interested in the world of giant robot warfare and full-throttle destruction, Iron Soldier is a must-play that showcases the Jaguar in all its glory. And in my mind, it's by far the best 3D offering available on the Jaguar, as I'm about to explain. But how did the Jaguar pull this off? And what made it so impressive for its time? And why does it still hold up as the Jaguar's greatest technical achievement? Today we're taking a deep dive look into the technology and innovation behind Iron Soldier, from its groundbreaking engine to the clever tricks developers use to make it all run smoothly. So get ready to totally geek out with me for a while in this retro gaming boss technical deep dive of Iron Soldier for the Atari Jaguar. Developed by Eclipse Software Design and published by Atari, this mech simulation thrusts players into a future world where you're tasked with taking down the oppressive Iron Fist Corporation. As a member of the Resistance, you pilot a hijacked and heavily armed mech to lay waste to enemy forces and free the planet from dictatorship. The game's origin is as interesting as the explosive gameplay itself. Atari had approached Eclipse Software to develop games for the Jaguar, and Mark Rosacha, the lead designer, pitched a mech-based game inspired by the producer Sean Patton's fascination with mechs and Godzilla. With an agreement to blow everything up, development began in 1993, combining Patton's love for urban warfare with Rosacha's vision for giant, destructive robots. The result was a gaming power fantasy par excellence, with intense kinetic combat that earned Iron Soldier a lasting place in retro gaming history. The mechs featured an industrial, chunky design, with your 42-foot-tall Iron Soldier bristling with its own set of weapons and customization options. As you progress through a series of increasingly difficult missions, you'll battle through environments where buildings shatter into hundreds of chunks and enemy vehicles explode into fireballs, with their twisted wreckage falling out of the sky in pieces. The controls, though initially complex for console games at the time, are mapped perfectly to the Jaguar's 17-button controller, offering players the ability to equip a wide range of weapons to different anchor points on their mech. You could arm your mech with shoulder-mounted rail cannon and rocket packs, and a chain cutter in hand, and a full pack of high-explosive grenades on your hip mounts. The cherry on top is the remote-controlled cruise missile that lets you fly around the battle space and precisely hit your target with a devastating strike. And I mean, how cool is that? And yes, you could literally stomp on enemy tanks and smash apart some buildings Rampage style by smashing them with your giant iron robot fists. Glorious. Missions in Iron Soldier vary widely, ranging from basic seek and destroy objectives to dramatic battles where you take down enemy convoys or even slug it out with other mechs that are fully loaded for bear. The thrill of battling other mechs amidst towering skyscrapers, with buildings being obliterated in the crossfire of your powerful weaponry, is a sight to behold. Initially showcased at the 1994 Summer Consumer Electronics Show, Iron Soldier was released in North America on December 22, 1994, and went on to become one of the most notable titles for the Jaguar, selling over 21,000 copies by 1995. But the total sales during the console's lifetime is unknown, and I've gotta imagine it's significantly higher. Upon its release, critics were quick to praise the game's cutting-edge 3D visuals, sound design, and destructible environments. Despite some legitimate criticisms, such as minuscule amount of texture mapping, slow movement speed, and limited mission variety, critics still hailed Iron Soldier for its stunning visuals and its polished gameplay. Game Fan magazine called it the best simulation game on the Jaguar. Players and reviewers alike appreciated the variety of enemies and the immersive experience that made it one of the top mech simulators on any system of its time. The success of Iron Soldier led to the development of a sequel, Iron Soldier 2, in 1997, which continued the mech combat saga on the Atari Jaguar CD. Though it came after the Jaguar's commercial decline, it was still widely recognized as one of the system's strongest releases. Now, before we dive into the tech itself, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is always here for a quick retro gaming break whenever you need it. I appreciate your support, since it's the only way that YouTube will highlight my videos. As we begin our review of the technology that brought Iron Soldier to life, let's first talk hardware. The Atari Jaguar was marketed as the first 64-bit console, though that claim was debatable. In reality, it used a mix of 32-bit and 64-bit processing, with multiple co-processors handling different tasks. Most Jaguar games struggled to utilize this architecture efficiently, but Iron Soldier was one of the few that truly harnessed the Jaguar's innate capabilities. So with all the heavy metal in the console, it leads us to the next question about Iron Soldier's 3D engine and how did it work? But before we go further, I want to put a bit of a disclaimer out there that some of the following details are based on the most credible information I could research for you online, from a variety of different forums and sources. And while I wasn't part of the development team, I believe the following explanation does get most of the technical details right. And if you catch any oversights, then please let me know about them in the comments below. Unlike the original Doom on the PC released in 1993, which used some 2.5D tricks like binary space partitioning trees to optimize rendering speed due to the limits of hardware at the time, Iron Soldier boasted real-time 3D polygonal graphics within a free-roaming environment with real-time physics for destructible environments. This was an extremely rare accomplishment for any gaming console in 1994. And by way of comparison, the transition from 2.5D games like Doom to true 3D rendering that was introduced in Quake on the PC didn't hit the scene until 1996. And that was only possible since Quake introduced a newer rendering method referred to as potential visible set calculations. It's also worth noting that having a PC that was capable of running Quake would have cost at least 2 to 3 times as much as the price of the Jaguar at its release. So there was a very real value for money that savvy Jag owners enjoyed with this game back in the day. Powered by a customized game engine originally designed for a 3D space game planned for the Atari Falcon, it was later rewritten for the Jaguar. The developers at Eclipse Software had to write custom assembly code to optimize the engine for the Jaguar's weird architecture. They even bypassed the 68,000 CPU for critical tasks, relying primarily on offloading those techniques to the more powerful GPU and DSP instead. The developers wisely prioritized smooth action and steady frame rates over graphical detail, and the gameplay benefits as a result. Buildings and enemy vehicles, from tanks to other mechs, consisted of only 20 to 200 polygons respectively, which helped keep the frame rate consistently around 25 to 30 frames per second, with drop-offs being pretty rare. The game's inherent slower pace and tank-like movements also served to reduce the rendering load by limiting the speed at which you could actually move through the environment. And instead of focusing on texture-mapped graphics, Iron Soldier concentrated the system's power on pushing polygons, with only a few low-res textures sprinkled throughout certain objects in the cityscapes. This was because the Jaguar's Blitzer chip was capable of fast polygon rendering, but it didn't have a cache for texture data. The game did use Garou shading on some of the objects, and the polygon shading effect looks pretty good, as seen in the numerous trees seen throughout the environment. As the action heated up, additional graphics tricks for draw distance were also used to maintain performance, including a programming routine called Level of Detail. This is where object details are scaled down when the player moves a certain distance away from what's visible in your field of view. This optimization helps to further stabilize frame rates, ensuring smoother gameplay without sacrificing the visual quality noticeably. And even by comparison with Cybermorph, another notable open-world 3D game on the Jaguar, that had relatively empty and repetitive terrain, the cityscapes in Iron Soldier felt more alive and varied, thanks in part to dynamic object streaming. This refers to the process of loading and unloading game assets in real time, based on the player's positioning and interaction in the game world. This allows for more detailed environments. This technique helps manage memory usage by keeping only the necessary objects in memory as players progress through different areas in the battlefield. Now, controlling a mech in 1994 wasn't easy, but Iron Soldier nailed it. The first-person view from the cockpit included a well-designed HUD with radar, ammo, and damage indicators. The little overlay card for the controller clearly showed the different weapon mounts, which really added to the experience of being a mech pilot and made it easy to cycle through the different weapon systems. The development of Iron Soldier was a race against time, and Eclipse Software delivered big time, with production of the game completed in just 10 months. But it was not without some content and features that never made it into the final version. For example, this would be one of the first titles to support two-player online gaming via the Jaguar voice modem by Phylon. However, the modem itself was never completed or released, so the title was released as a single-player game only. Unused code also suggests a hidden debug mode, so perhaps a level editor toolkit existed that never made it into the final release. Rumor also has it that some prototype versions featured more advanced lighting effects, which sadly at this point may be lost to history. It was a treat, however, to see the improvements made by the follow-up sequel, Iron Soldier 2, with its even more optimized game engine and better overall performance, higher frame rate, and most notably, more texture-mapped polygon graphics. The Jaguar CD version also included an enhanced CD soundtrack and full-motion video cutscenes. Iron Soldier 2 has got to be the single greatest demonstration that shows the Jaguar's true power. So this understanding of the tech behind the mechs naturally brings us to the comparison of how Iron Soldier stacks up with comparable releases that came later on the PlayStation and Saturn. But before we tackle that, if you enjoy this content, I've put a link in the description below of a playlist of all of my other videos that you might enjoy, including a ton of other Jaguar content. So check it out and stick around for a while. The 90s saw the rise of several influential mecha combat games, some of which became benchmarks for the genre. Titles like Mech Warrior 2, Virtua On, and Gun Griffin each brought their own unique technological innovations to the table. So how did Iron Soldier compare? Let's break it down. Mech Warrior 2 was a CD-based PC game that was later ported to consoles. Boy, does it show. The PlayStation and Saturn versions struggled with draw distance and choppy frame rates, while Iron Soldier maintained a smooth experience by using the Jaguar's hardware more efficiently. There's no doubt about it, Mech Warrior 2 is one of the most sophisticated mech simulators of the 90s. Unlike Iron Soldier, which focused on a more arcade-like experience, Mech Warrior 2 leaned heavily into the simulation aspects, with pilots navigating larger, tactical combat environments that required them to manage heat levels, armor status, and weapons. That level of detailed customization and strategy in Mech Warrior 2 was definitely stripped back in Iron Soldier. However, Iron Soldier's destructible environments were a step up compared to Mech Warrior 2's mostly open and static terrain. Iron Soldier's cities were denser urban landscapes that could be used to provide cover from enemy fire while progressing through missions, and its simplified inputs worked better on a gamepad versus Mech Warrior 2's complex PC keyboard controls. Virtua On, an arcade game from Sega, was another key competitor in the 90s mecha genre. Known for its twin-stick arcade controls, Virtua On featured fast-paced, third-person combat with highly stylized mechs. It was the first game to bring the Virtua Fighter engine to the mecha genre, offering smooth, fluid animations in 3D battle arenas. Unlike Iron Soldier, Virtua On was all about intense, fast-paced combat, while Iron Soldier leaned more towards strategic play. Virtua On's focus was tight, arena-based duels, while Iron Soldier engaged in larger-scale warfare. In terms of hardware, Virtua On was powered by Sega's mighty Model 2 arcade hardware that was built for fast, fluid 3D graphics, setting it apart from Iron Soldier's less polished but still impressive visuals on the Atari Jaguar home console. Released in 1996 on the Sega Saturn, Gun Griffin was another tactical mecha game that offered a hybrid mix of action and simulation elements. Its gameplay was more akin to Iron Soldier than MechWarrior 2, with a focus on accessible controls and faster-paced combat, including the ability to go airborne for brief bursts. Gun Griffin also featured large, detailed environments and offered players the ability to customize their mechs. Graphically, Gun Griffin was more refined due to the Sega Saturn's newer hardware, providing fluid action with its 2.5D sprite scaling environments and detailed graphics. In contrast, Iron Soldier leaned into the Jaguar's 3D polygonal rendering, giving players an enormous sense of weight and scale. So this one's a toss-up that really comes down to the preferences of the player. Both are great games in their own right. So, was Iron Soldier the best mech game of its era? I don't know if I'd say that, but it was the most ambitious on our console back to the time of its release, which we need to remember was a couple of years before the flashier graphics of the PlayStation and Saturn even came onto the scene. Back in '94, the Jaguar's unique architecture let Iron Soldier do things that other systems just weren't capable of, and the feeling of destructive power that was at your fingertips has to be played to truly be experienced. While Iron Soldier and the Jaguar weren't a commercial hit, it proved that the console could compete toe-to-toe with early PlayStation and Saturn titles in terms of its raw horsepower. It was a glimpse into the future of mech games and open-world game designs to come. So fast forward over 30 years to the present day, and it's a testament to what clever coding could achieve on the Jaguar hardware that wasn't really even originally designed or optimized for 3D gaming to begin with. Iron Soldier is one of my favorite examples of how the Jaguar, despite its short lifespan, offered some compelling gaming experiences for those willing to dive into its world. But that's just what I think. How about you? Was Iron Soldier ahead of its time? Did it deserve more recognition? Or was it a dud compared to the competition on the Sega and Sony 32-bit consoles? I'd love to hear about your favorite Jaguar games, so let me know in the comments below. And if you want more deep dives into forgotten tech marvels, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out, reminding you to keep your games old school. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.